Good morning.
Good evening.
Good afternoon.
Whatever time it is, you're catching this podcast, you're catching another episode of
An honest conversation
with Mark.
and Tyler.
That's Mark.
That's Tyler.
That's right. All right. We got a special guest tonight.
Very, very special.
Took 2 weeks to get this to happen. Busy man. We have Chris Jackson with us tonight, a good longtime friend of mine. And Chris, good to finally see you. We talk not as regular as we have, but I ain't seen you in a while, so it's good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. Glad to be here.
Yeah, well, we're glad to have you. Chris, you want to tell us a little bit about what you do?
What do I do? So professionally, I work with an organization called C12. C12 is a peer-to-peer advisor group. So I work with Christian CEOs and business people, and we put together groups of Christian CEOs and business people and talk about how to grow their business, how to have a better business, and how to have a profitable business, and then how do you use that business to do good, advance the kingdom, and stuff like that. So that's what we do.
Yeah. So how long we've been friends? I'm gonna put you on the spot.
47 years.
It's only been 84 years. Now we go back to the I guess really work days where we really, and bless Chris's heart, he's had to talk me off the ledge a lot.
Once or twice.
Yeah. So we're excited to have him, and we want to talk tonight about just some conversations. I was talking to Chris before we got started, and just talk about some things that me and him discussed over the years that I think the average, things that me and Mark we kind of discuss on here week to week. I think that a lot of Christians don't think about. One of the things I want to discuss tonight is identity. I spend a lot of time, maybe too much time. I don't know if you can say too much time, but here at Buck Creek talking about identity, and I think when people ask you, what's your identity? When I was younger, I identified by what I did. I know growing up, like football was life, and a good friend of mine, Willie Spears, we talked about this too. And, when you identify by what you do, that comes to an end, I guess. I don't care, I don't care how good you are at sports. What the lifespan I just heard the other day in the NFL is 2.5 years. And so even if you make it to the elite of the elite, and you make it to the pros, 2.5 years is a pretty good span nowadays. And I think a lot of people are lost when something, you lose a job, because that happens. If I identify myself as a pastor, what happens if I'm not a pastor? And those are some conversations that you and I had several years ago when we were, believe it or not, folks, I went to a silent retreat.
Yeah, right.
Ask Chris. He was there.
He was there.
And I didn't talk. I didn't talk to him anyway. Yeah. I did. We did pass each other. Like, you had to be kind of like, if you saw each other on the...
Couldn't make eye contact, because if you made eye contact, he couldn't.
I'd be like... you asked me the question, what's your identity? And I gave the answer like most Christians would. Well, I'm, in Christ, and that's my identity. But I think that's not a true answer. It is a true answer, but it's also an answer that doesn't really identify what God's called me to do. Mm-hmm. Right. And, you're really good at like making me mad. So
I've done that a few
times. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, you're good friends, Mark. if like we all tell them the truth.
It's just got to be honest.
It's an honest conversation. So we're going to be honest tonight. And so I guess kind of where I'm going with this is like, what's your identity? Like, have you ever thought about, okay, so I'm in Christ. Maybe you're not in Christ, but if you are in Christ, then what is your identity in Him? And Chris posed that question. I'll kind of let you talk a little bit about that if you want to.
So identity is it's something I think we don't talk enough about,
Right.
and we don't think a lot about it because our behavior is a language, right? How we act and what we do is a language, and so we can tell when people have issues with our identity with just how they act and how they live, and also how they talk about themselves. And sometimes we just don't pay that any attention. And I think a lot of times when we really think about our identity, we're afraid to say what our true identity is, um, in that just can't be true. That can't be true about me because I have this stack of evidence that says this is not who I am. So I point to that stack of evidence to say that's who I am, not what God says.
Right.
And I think for the Christian, your identity is made up of two different parts. Um, it's our thoughts about God and our thoughts about us. And so, or you can say it a different way: our thoughts about God and our thoughts about God's thoughts
About us. Yeah.
And like a question I ask people regularly is, how do you feel? What do you think? Or how do you feel that God sees you? And I've gotten a lot of pretty interesting answers about that. But that's a very exposing question. Is do you think God sees you?
Well, I think transparency is very vulnerable. I heard on the podcast the other day you saying all that kind of reminded me of it, like, and it really resonated with me. And the guy said a lot of people identify themselves with their issue.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say if I'm a let's say I'm a Christian and I struggle with alcohol, or I struggle with this, or I struggle with pornography, or I struggle with fornication, or whatever it is. I'm just throwing out some big ones that people like to, and they identify and they use that as like a crutch to be like, well, this is, kind of like me and you've talked about over the years. I've always, one of my big issues is I'm always waiting on something bad to happen. Always something, if it's going too good, I'm waiting on something bad to happen.
So you're a worrier.
Oh, and I'm pretty much transparent about that.
So that's a really good example.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna challenge you a little
Yeah,
bit.
go ahead.
I do that, Mark. So
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
Well, challenge Mark. Okay.
we'll get to Mark. Again, behavior is a language, right?
Mhm.
So if I'm always expecting bad to happen, what does that say about my faith?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it says I don't have it.
Yeah. And instead of pretending that we do, we just need to be honest with God and say, you know, David was this way. And people say, I had a conversation a couple of days with a guy around this, is that well, I trust God, but it'd be a lot better off if we just say, God, I don't trust you right now.
Right.
I want to, but I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I need you to help me.
Mhm.
But we're afraid to have that conversation because we're afraid to say, I don't trust you. But my behavior is saying, I don't trust you. And David did that frequently, and we will get a lot farther along in our life if we would just be honest with God and say, hey, I don't trust you here.
Well, I've said this often that, like, God, I think God respects honesty. I mean, I don't, and so, some of my conversations with God are like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then other times it's like, I don't want to, but I, one thing that kind of wrecked me, I heard a guy say one time, he said, when you worry, you're basically telling God that he don't know what he's doing. I mean, and it's like, I guess if we want to flesh this thing out on both sides, like, yeah, I mean, like, I know God is going to do what's right. I don't know that I'm going to like what's right.
Well, a lot of times we think that, okay, God might bless me, but he's got to hurt me first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel that way a lot.
And so, but again, what does that say about our faith? And, David oftentimes said, I don't think you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And David would say, God, are you even here?
Mm-hmm.
How long are you going to stay away from me?
Yeah.
How long are you going to let me suffer like this?
Mm-hmm.
And he was just honest with me.
Yeah. This past week, I was actually, I don't know. I thought I was telling Mark, but I'm getting older, so I can't remember what I tell and don't tell.
And you hit your head a few times.
Yeah, I have it. I've had a couple of concussions,
Yeah.
three confirmed, but now, but with our the farm stuff, and I was like kind of in a bind, needing to get something. And I was like, well, I got the money, but I don't want to spend. And then I was like trying to get the money other way, like not robbing a bank. I thought about it, but anyway, I was like, and it didn't work out. The thing I was trying to do didn't work out, and I was kind of frustrated, and I was like, whatever, man. Like I just whatever. We just and it's weird how you don't see what God's doing until it's over. Like it's kind of like you're in the middle of a fist fight, and after it's over, you kind of replay. And anyway, so I was like, I was checking my bank stuff last night because I had to order. Anyway, I was checking it, and I looked, and I'm not kidding y'all. The exact amount of money I was trying to get. I'm not kidding. Like the exact. Like there was some money that I was owed that I didn't even know I was owed, and it was in. And I was like, now I feel like a big horse is, what? Because I'm like sitting there, but it's funny how like I call them like I don't know if this is a great term, but I call it like God winks a little bit. Like I know that like the day that my grandmother passed away, I was sitting out on the porch. Right, and she had just passed. They're still the hearse ain't even got there, and I was just so obviously distraught, and I was sitting out on the porch, and I had my head down, kind of between my hands, and I looked up, and she always had like little decorative stuff, and she had a little patio table out there, and I kind of looked up, and I was like, God, I just, I know this is part of life. It's just the way it is. I said, but I really need something, and I mean, this is not me making this up. This is legit. I don't do that kind of stuff. And I looked up, and there was a little bird figurine sitting there, and it said, "Faith is the substance of things hoped for." And I just lost it. Like I was like, and when we talk about identity, um, it and this is the way I explain it at church now, and this is in a sermon setting, so it's not like it is right now where we can all talk. But I often say like the truth about you is something you can't see. Like I can look in the mirror and I can tell that you and Mark don't have hair. I do this all the time.
Why do you have to go there?
I can look in the mirror and tell you that this was not gray 5 years ago. I can look and tell you when I can look on the scale and say, man, I weigh more than I did when I got out of high school. I'm cracking on everybody. I can look in the mirror, like you said, you got this stack of evidence. So the evidence is I'm a piece of crap. That's the evidence. I mean, obviously. I mean, if we were to rack off everything, I seen a meme the other day that said me and my homies outside the pearly gates while our group chats on the big screen. It's like that. You're like, man, if I stack it all up, I mean, like even my good stuff, even all the people I prayed for, all the sermons I preached, all the times I went out of my way to help somebody, it won't stack up against all the wrong I've done because it's just so easy to do wrong because Jesus let us know that, hey, it ain't about what you do. It's also about what's in here. If I have hate in my heart, I've already committed murder. If I've lusted after a woman, I've already, so all those evidences keep stacking high. And we're just like, I think that's why a lot of people.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you look at the evidence and you see this and you say, well, I'm a piece of crap. How do you think that impacts you? How does that impact how you live?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because that's what you think about and I say this all the time. If you were my son or I was your son and all you did was tell me what a loser I was, I grew up thinking I was a loser. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's exactly what I mean. If Mark every day, every time we did this podcast, Mark's like, you really suck at this, and
you did say that.
Well, that was before he came in.
I'm just say it every time. I know it. So when we talk about identity, and the thing I kind of wanted to get to was like, me and you were in the car on the way up there, and you asked me that question. I didn't have an answer. I didn't have an answer. I mean, if I were to say, Mark, what's your identity? I'm gonna throw you out in there because you've been quiet over there. So
we'll get him in a minute.
Yeah, I'm operating the camera angle.
Mark feels like he did when we had Mark Perry on because he couldn't get a word in between me and Mark. So, but when he asked me the question, I really wanted to answer, but I didn't know how to answer. And, spending that time kind of in quiet, which is difficult for me. But it's not just about like being quiet. Like, it's not just about me being quiet. It's not just about us being quiet. It's about our life being quiet. Because when you wake up, I woke up this morning with a stack of messages at 7:00. You know what I'm saying? But when life is quiet, we have a tendency to be able to hear a little better. And I'm not doing this to you make Chris feel good, but if it wasn't for these two guys sitting in this room with me today, this podcast would be happening. And how long did I tell you that I wanted to do this for? Years? It was years.
Yeah.
It was because it was like what 17, 18 when we went to that, somewhere in there. I know. Well, that's because you're over 50 and
That's
right. But anyway, and then me and Mark, Mark and Britta came to church here, and of course we've known each other a long time. But they were at the house, and I told Chris, I said I just kept mentioning it to different people, like, I think God's calling me to. Because when I left that podcast, when I left the retreat, really felt like God was calling me to help set people free, because I was a prisoner myself. And I thought about the movie Gladiator. That was kind of where, and that's when you kind of started talking about Star Wars, and we're not, and I never thought about it like that. You were talking about your whole trip and venture and all that God was doing there, and I was like, okay, well, you said, what's your favorite movie? And I was like, well, my favorite movie is Gladiator, without a doubt. Still watch it. Gladiator 2 was really good. Still ain't as good as the first one, but it was really good. And I felt when I left there like it was kind of like, that in that movie, like Gladiator, he's this Roman general, like this, if I have to tell you what Gladiator is about, you don't watch this podcast. But anyway, he's like, and then he's a slave, and he has to teach these other slaves how to be free men. And I think when we're born again, like, one of the verses that always, I guess for a long time, got kind of troubled me. And I don't say troubled me. Like, I liked what I was reading, but I didn't feel that. But when Jesus says, if when you know the truth will make you free. Okay. Well, I don't feel free. I feel worse than I did before I got saved.
Because you don't believe the truth.
Exactly.
And the other thing about identity is it's not a one-time trip.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not something that, okay, I settle this is who I am, and I'm done with it.
Right.
Because there's an enemy out there in the world out there that's constantly on us about that, and so we have to be on guard around our identity, and because it's easy to fall back into our old way of thinking that back to that I'm no good again.
So I've been sitting here thinking, because I wanted to ask you, how do we keep from falling into that same trap over and over?
Well, I don't think that we'll ever just not fall back into it. But what I do think will happen is as we grow in this, and it is something we have to be very intentional about. It's not something. So I have a story. I probably won't tell it now, but a lot of times we think we're floating, but we're actually drifting. So if we ever think we're sitting still, we're actually moving backwards.
Mm.
Right. So we have to be really intentional on growing and moving forward. But what I think happens is as we grow, we fall and we only stay down, a lot shorter time than we used to.
Yeah.
Whereas we used to fall and hey, we'd be down for months or
Yeah.
whatever. And it gets to where, okay, we get back up a lot faster because it's easier for us to go back to what's the truth. And that's, what I try to do and what I try to coach people around doing is when we hear those messages, stop and just say, who told me that? And what's truth?
Yeah.
You're laughing.
I just realized something. I'll tell you later.
Okay. Just thought it was funny.
Well, y'all are like, y'all got a lot of secrets over there.
I know the lights are. We don't have the studio lights on,
Oh,
but it looks good on the camera. So
well,
Will it help me look better?
pause it.
no, it's fine.
Take a-
You want to pause it and then
yeah,
Let's take a break.
take a break.
all right, we're back.
Technical difficulties.
If all of a sudden you saw a light change different in the video,
Yeah. The Lord is this. Y'all better get ready.
We saw an angel.
You know
so
what I mean?
anyway,
So let's talk about identity some more. So I don't think it does us a lot of good just to talk about who you are
Mhm.
until first we deal with who you believe you are. And so I think we have to deal with a lie first. And so that goes back to your question, how do we not fall? Well, we have to identify the lies that we believe about ourselves first. And when we have those lies, well, then we can start recognizing them a little bit when we start hearing them again. Now, the enemy, he's really creative. And so he'll come at us a lot of different ways with the same lie, but he'll
Dress it up.
dress it up. But I think that's the first step we have to do is we have to start thinking, all right, what do I really believe about myself? Because sometimes we try to skip that step and go straight to it's kind of like sin. I mean, we have to confess a sin first. The Bible's real clear on confess your sin, and we can go into what the lies are. I mean, because sometimes that can get sinful too. But I think that's the way that we fall less and stay down a shorter period of time is when we start being able to identify, hey, these are the things I believe about myself, and there it is again.
Mhm.
There it is again. And when there it is again, a lot of times we can't get up on our own.
Mhm.
We have to go back to God and say, God, remind me what's true.
It's good.
That answer your question?
oh yeah, absolutely. And we were doing a Sunday school lesson on twisted scripture. No, it was the one before that.
Two roads.
Twisted
Yeah,
sister?
John. Twisted Sister. That was the 80s.
My bad.
Yeah.
yeah.
That was actually mine and Chris's buddy John Lynch that two road study. We did that a couple of years ago.
and the lesson that really stuck with me is that we wear masks
Mhm.
because we don't want other people to see what we feel that we are.
Mhm.
And we oftentimes, as you said at the beginning of the podcast, that sometimes, we think that God just doesn't like us.
Mhm.
And that's absolutely not true.
Mhm.
Not only does God love us, but if we're saved, when he looks at us, he sees Jesus.
Mhm.
And we know he likes his son.
Mhm.
I mean, if you're thinking about it in our Father's Son.
Mhm.
So I think it's important.
Depending on, it might have been the teenage years. Might not have been cool.
He was without sin. So,
When he was 12, he got lost. Go ahead.
but I just,
Oh, he wasn't lost.
Everybody else was lost. That's right.
they
That's
should have
right.
known that he was in his Father's house. But, I think it's important. And, it's real simple. But if we read the Bible tells us how God feels about us.
Mhm.
And, I think it's important to remind ourselves
Mhm.
daily that I am a child of the King.
Mhm.
That's not just a cliche. I'm
Yeah,
his
that's-
child. Think about how you feel about your own children.
Mhm.
Yeah, no
There's-
matter what.
Yeah, there's nothing that they could do that would make me love them any less.
Yeah, I think the rub is a lot of times people say, "Well, I know God loves me,"
Mm.
but it's kind of like my mama loving me. She kind of has to.
Right, right.
And like with my own story, the first time I was ever asked that question about, how do you feel God sees you? In my mind, I went straight to, well, he's disappointed in me.
Mm-mm.
I could just hear God saying,
Mhm.
Chris, I gave you all this potential and I gave you, all this stuff. And I've done, and what have you done with it? You've just not done anything with it. I'm just disappointed.
Some of us hear the same tapes. Maybe a little different, but
Well, I do fall back into that sometimes, but not very often
yeah.
anymore.
well, that's because you're like 80 years old. You had a lot of practice.
79.
So, talking about the identity, this was something that I'd really not thought much about. But I do listen to some podcasts. I listen to a lot of different podcasts, but I don't listen to the whole thing, kind of like most people don't listen. But anyway, I was listening, and the guy was talking about Peter. I never realized this. You would think how many times I feel like I've read the Bible. Well, probably not as many as I think I have, but so when Jesus called Peter the first time, And I shared this at church Sunday. He was like, hey, throw over. Man, dude, been fishing all night, bro. Why don't you come out here,
I'm a professional.
Yeah, I am a professional. Yeah. It's like somebody come on Facebook or something about our workouts or something, telling me something, and I'm like, don't tell me nothing about working out. Okay. I'm a professional. But anyhow, the point is. And then, so Jesus said, hey, I'm going to make you a fisher of men. So then they walked together for 3.5 years. Well, then when Jesus dies, before Jesus goes to the cross, Peter says, I'll die before I'll let that happen. Which sounds noble.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think he meant it.
I think he did. I absolutely believe he meant it, because I would have been the same way. Like, look, bro, it's kind of like that old, hey, bro, they coming after you, they coming after us.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to fight it out. We're going to tear it down, and it sounds really good. And I think in a lot of religion type situations, that's kind of things, not that it's not meant, but we think because if we'll just, we'll just say enough, or we'll just pray enough, or we'll read enough. He's like, I ain't letting you go to the cross. Like, and he's like, hey, get behind me, bro.
Mm-hmm.
He calls it, get behind me, Satan. Well, anyway, y'all know.
I don't remember the bro part.
Yeah, he said, bro. He says,
I'm not sure which version that was.
Bro, it's the I'm all up on the new stuff. I have a 14-year-old son, so I know
level version of the Bible.
Yeah, yeah. So we all know the story, but anyway, so it's funny because a lot of people don't really get Peter denied Jesus, but the Bible kind of is pretty descriptive. Like, not only did he deny him, he denied him to the point he was like, he swore, like, I don't know who the blankie is. I don't know that blanking guy, whatever it was. He said, I don't know what he said. I don't know how they talked in Aramaic and all that back then. But anyway, so, but basically he gets to the point where he swears, I don't know the guy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Then he's living with the shame, which and that's the thing. People's like, oh, we don't want to deny Jesus. How many times have we denied Jesus by what we've done or what we've said, or since we've been saved?
Mm-hmm. Over and over.
Over and over. And so then, but here's the kicker. So, like, I never really thought about it, but when they have the breakfast on the sea, the guy makes the point that Jesus walked 80 miles from where Peter was, because Peter's like, he's hearing it. No, like, man, I'm just gonna go back fishing, man. I don't know what else to do. I've screwed this up 3.5 years of my life.
Going back to my old ways.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to what. And that's not to say that you can't do something for a living that you've done. But the spiritual line here is like, I'm just gonna go back to what I know. And then Jesus walks 80 miles. 80 miles, man. I can't imagine walking 8 miles. 8 miles. Well, I can do a mile, but. And he calls him on the same sea, same place. It's like, hey. And it's like Peter doesn't really. And then, so they have this, like, you see the scene where they're together they're eating fish, or, and it's like Jesus is basically telling him, like, see, it was never really about you, but Peter was finding his identity in what he had done.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just thought that was interesting. Kind of a take on that. I mean, I guess I knew it, but how you know something, but it didn't highlight like it's.
Well, you know it in your brain, you don't know it in your heart.
Yeah, and so I think about that a lot when I screw it up or whatever, and then I'm like, I used to always feel like I had to start over with God, like, go back to the drawing board, and like you say, the longer we go, hopefully the shorter the amount of time but I used to, like, when I would go on I would call it like a sin, like I was mad or this or that or whatever. And like, I'd go days without talking to God about it. I'd be like, I want to talk to you about it, but I'm really mad about it right now, and I still do that. I still fall into that.
Well, we think a lot of times, so if we got, real here for a little bit, we all have things in our past that, we don't want everybody to know about.
Mm-hmm.
And there's probably some things that if the truth be known, you haven't forgiven yourself for. And so there's a feeling of that when I sin, when I mess up, the blood wasn't quite enough So I got to beat myself up some. I got to beat myself up a little
It's
bit
like a
too.
rite of passage.
Yeah, I gotta beat myself up because I got to pay a little bit too, and that's also not biblical.
Yeah. That's good stuff, man.
That's good stuff. I'm glad that we don't have to take a whip and
But,
whip
we
ourselves,
do.
but we
Well,
do.
we do.
We do, yeah,
But we,
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same thing.
And we feel good about it too. I mean, self deprecation a lot of times. We feel like if I can put myself down, I'm helping God out a little bit. Tyler's probably heard me say this, but I have a pet peeve, and this pet peeve is you're in church. Usually, this is where it is,
I know what's coming.
and you say somebody says, hey Mark, how you doing? And you look at me, you say, better than I deserve. And I really have an issue with that.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad this come up.
And so this is the way, and I think this was a God thing. Nobody told me that. I think this is a God thing because the truth is we don't deserve anything.
Right.
But it's not about what you deserve. I mean, how many kids do you have?
Two.
What's their ages?
They're both
They're 12.
12. They're both 12.
Okay, they're both 12. What'd y'all do for them for Christmas?
Lord, what didn't we do?
So you did a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine Christmas Day, you gave them all this stuff for Christmas, and so were you excited about giving them the gifts for Christmas?
I was just as excited to find out what they were getting as they were.
Right.
What?
Hi.
Because you're a loving dad that likes that. So imagine they're down there and they're tearing the presents open and they see what it is and they say, "Hey Dad, thanks so much for what you gave me. I know I don't deserve it." What would that do to you?
Yeah.
What would that do to you? And we do that to God all the time. We say, "God, thank you for all that you've given us. I know I don't deserve it." Because we think we're helping God out by being humble, but you think about what if one of your kids? I mean, I just 2 weeks ago we
Well, I don't know. I
Go ahead.
think the reaction's twofold.
yeah, go ahead.
I appreciate that they are grateful.
But that's not what they said. They said, "I know I don't
They didn't
deserve
say we were grateful.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get what you're
But
saying.
they're coming across grateful. But then I see where you're coming
Mhm.
from as their parent. You want them to know that
You're worth it."
that's right,
You're
and
worth
that's why we did what because
So that's my response to
I
that.
got
When
you.
somebody says better than I deserve,
Yeah.
I always respond back, "But you're worth it." And if you, I just, and anybody listen to this, hey, try that next time somebody says it, you'll freak them out because they'll be like, "What?" Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you've probably heard this story, Chris. Mark may have, I don't know, but I remember several years ago, like I was having some time with God, and I was like, I just need to know how you feel about me. I really do. I mean, like I need, I don't need the clouds to open. I don't, but I need you to. It was kind of like this past week. I just need you to. I need to know you're still there. I know you're there in my mind, but. And I was in the house and nobody was there, and I was in my living room, and I'm like, it's like when you're really wanting pressing God for answers, it seems like it's never quieter than it is then. And I was like, I just need to know how you feel about me. And nothing, crickets. And then like I look up, and on our wall at the time where we were living, there was a picture of my oldest son, and he was like 3. And he's like, he's got his overalls on and, no shoes and all that good stuff. And he's kind of hugged up around a tree. And I'm like, Chris, I believe this is a God thing. I'm not saying I heard, but like I looked up and I saw that picture, and I've seen that picture 1,000 times. It's been on our wall for a long time. He's 23 years old. And I looked at it and he said, you see how you see it? You know how you feel about that little boy right there? And I'm like, I'm looking around like, what? And that's how I feel about you. And I'm like, and I always say that, and I'm really good at talking about this. I'm not as good, but I say any jackass can preach. Balaam's donkey proved that. But I looked at it and I was like, and you get it, And I remember after reading, you were talking about the 2 roads study we did. So I read The Cure several years ago. Chris gave it to me, and I ended up becoming friends with John, who wrote a lot of it. And I actually talked to John one time not long after I read it, and I was like, "Hey, like, dude, this is like me read that book." And I know you got to keep growing, but I'll just say that book single handedly, outside of Scripture itself, has been the biggest light bulb in my life. And it was like I was reading my life, like everything he was saying. I was like, I couldn't put it down. And listen to me, I'm not a reader. Okay.
See, there's that identity.
Yeah. See,
See,
He
that's
identifies as illiterate. Yeah.
no, that is so true.
Yeah.
And I know you just did that for
Yeah.
an example. But when we say those things like that, you'll never be a reader with that.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
you're saying you're reaffirming
Reaffirming
all the time.
yeah.
I'm not a reader.
And I couldn't put the book down. And I'm like, but I remember talking to John, and I said, man, how do you get to where you are? Like, because I'm there today, but then tomorrow, it was like yesterday, man. Yesterday was a good. It's very rare that Mondays are good days, but Monday it was a good day. It was a good day. Got a lot done. Things went well. I had all of my children at my house last night. All of them. I had all 4 of them. We ate together. We had a great time, and that's a rarity because I have grown. And you know, because Mark don't know because he ain't got grown kids yet. Nobody prepares you for grown children. Sure do. So I had them all there. It was just a good day, you know. And but then the next day, you know, then it's all back in the woe is me. It's the life is like, you
Well,
know,
I think
what's that saying? You know, life sucks and you die. You know,
yeah, that's not a good saying.
that's not a good saying. You need to talk to Brandy. You need to talk to Brandy. She says it a lot.
What we're talking about when we're talking about identity and even talking about good days, bad days, it's all about our perspective. And that's why I'm a big proponent and a big believer in gratitude,
Mhm.
because gratitude is not just have a list of things you're thankful for. Gratitude is a posture of the heart.
Mhm.
Because the truth of the matter is, Monday and Tuesday both were good days. Just Tuesday you chose to look at the bad things, and
Mhm.
Monday you chose to look at the good things.
Right.
The
I tell you, I didn't like this guy.
there's 2 scriptures that I often tie together, and one's Philippians 4:8. And in that scripture, it says, you know, it says, finally, brothers, like, the end of, I'm going to save the most important thing for the last thing I'll tell you. It says, whatever is good, whatever is holy, whatever is righteous. And he goes through a whole list.
Mhm.
And he says, think on these things. And what he's telling us there is, hey, pay attention and focus on the positive things, focus on the good things, because what we focus on grows. And then you tie that back to Romans 12:2, where it says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. What he's saying in red level speak, hey, is grow.
You're from Florella, man. Quit talking. Red Oak.
We don't talk about it. Grow and be transformed. In other words, be growing by changing how you think.
That's really good.
And it's about our perspective with identity. It's also our perspective around gratitude. Are we focused on the good things? We're focused on the bad things, because every day there's good things to be grateful for, and every day there's bad things. And whichever one of those we're going to focus on that day is going to make the day good or make the day bad.
I can tell you this as a farmer. Most of those guys, I've never talked to a farmer who didn't have something to complain about. And I always said,
I would hang around those guys.
I was like, well, and that's what I've said. I've said to myself, like, God, I hope I never turn out like that, you know. But then, then you start, and then things are, and you focus. And the reason I'm saying that, like yesterday, nothing went wrong, really. I mean, nothing major, nothing. There was really no. I mean, I went to work. I listened to podcasts when I was in the tractor. I mean, I'm like, peace in the Lord and all that good stuff. And like everything went really good. I went to Gunner's workouts and all that stuff, and everything went great. And then today, not so much. But what you're saying is really making me think. Like, I could have chosen to think, man, I got a lot done yesterday, and
You just got a lot of rain.
yeah, just got a lot of rain. That's and listen, I'm not one of those to like say, but like that rain last week probably saved a lot of people.
Sure.
I mean, it really, and I never really thought about that when I wasn't doing that. Like as a, I mean, yeah, we need some rain. Like it's funny because people come up to me, boy, and they're an accountant,
Mhm.
And they're like, boy, we need some rain. I'm like, you don't have a clue, brother. Like, you don't just have, you don't got, me and Mark were talking about, he was asking me about peanut seed before you got here. And he was talking about, what'd you buy, 10 pounds?
Yeah.
And he's like, how much did you pay for peanut seed? I was at 84 cents a pound. And he's like, and I paid a lot more than that. I was like, yeah, but I bought $20,000. He's like, yeah, I bought 20. And I think about, like, I mean, it really did. Like and like then all the stuff, like I just felt like everything was kind of, all the evidence was stacking up. This is the way it always goes. This is the way it's always going to go. And then I'm like, God, I don't
So
want.
what difference would it make in your life practically? What difference would it make in
Don't
your
do
life?
that. That's my move.
What difference would it make in your life if you thought more the other way?
It'd change everything.
Changes everything.
And I say that every Sunday. And, that's the thing that drives me crazy. Like God, I feel like God always gives me a message about something that me and him's argued about that week.
Mhm.
And I don't know if we're really arguing or if I'm just the only one talking, like, and he's just like, he'll get over himself in a little bit.
He's probably thinking, if Tyler will shut up long enough, I'll talk to him.
Well, you did say something Sunday that at the very least stuck with me. You know how you talked about trying to start your day with God,
Mhm.
that it makes the day better as opposed to waiting to the end,
Mhm.
to try to find time before you go
You
to
won't find
sleep.
it.
And then, you pass out while you're praying and then you feel guilty about doing that.
Why?
See, I told you. I told you.
Why what? Feel guilty about
a leprechaun, man.
Okay. I'll be honest with you, because the way that I was brought up, praying is a solemn time. You should be. I don't know. This is all horse manure, but you should.
Nah, I don't think it does.
If you knew all that was horse manure,
Hey, there's a
saying.
couch right over there. We need to get Mark laid out on it. Chris, get your.
Y'all have a great night.
No. Yeah, that's why Mark's been quiet over there.
But
This has been my life for 8 years. This is it. This is it.
So what I'm just trying to do to point out
sure.
is, again, our behavior is a language, and so I feel guilty. That's showing what you really believe.
Yeah.
So my point was that if you start, if we're
Nobody cares what your point.
we'll start the day with God and go ahead and get that reminder that He loves us and that He's going to be with us. That it's a lot better.
So I'm 1-for-2 this week. Like, so I said that, and it's true. I mean, it is, or for me, it's true. Like if I start my morning with just a little something, it does seem like I have that reminder in the back of my head. Instead of like this morning, I roll out of bed and like, everybody, the kids are, I mean, everything's crazy. And like, you're like, I'm like, I never realized, and Chris will definitely, and Mark, both of y'all get this, but like, I've never resonated more with Chevy Chase than, when he walks down the stairs in his Blackhawks jersey and he just looks around and he's just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like everybody, my wife's like trying to chase JB through the hall, doing his hair, or whatever. And it's like, you're just like, I think I want to go back to bed.
That's right.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely true that when I started with God, it does seem like my focus is a little bit more on that right side of things, not. And when it doesn't, I'm like, here we go, another day. I've said this quite a bit lately, but like everything just seems like it's way harder than it should be. Like, I mean, like, put on your shirt in the morning, you put your head through the sleeve, or it's just like, my gosh, man, it shouldn't be that hard. I've been dressing myself for 40 years, But and then you start that, like, and I do it bad. I do. It's one of the things that I struggle greatly with. I'm trying to make sure I word this right so Chris doesn't egg me with something, but he probably will anyway. But like, I'm just like, here we go again, another day, and it's gone, awry, and this is the way it's always going to be. Like, I'm never going. I thought, all right, so we're just going to be totally transparent here. I guess we're just going to take all the clothes off. So I will be like, well, I meant figuratively speaking, Chris. So like, I'll go, I ain't got nothing. I'll never have nothing. This is the way it's going to be. That's the way that's when I fall down that stairwell of shame and guilt, and that's where it goes. And what's worse is that I'm married to a person who I love more than life itself, but she's the same way.
Yeah.
And you always tell me when I say, I'm a piece of crap or something like that, and you're like, I'm not gonna let you talk about yourself like that.
Do you want me to start letting you talk to me and start agreeing with you?
Well, I mean, I don't know. No, but she did that to me the other day, and I was like, I said, well, I'm going to be Chris Jackson. I ain't gonna let nobody's talking about my wife like that,
Yeah.
you included. But I think it just goes back to like, and I say this probably every time I speak, and I'm a better talker than I am listener, but
It's obvious.
yeah, I know. I ain't telling me nothing. But like, what would it do in your life? Just what you said. If I believed what was true versus what is in my head or what I've done, what would change? And that's one of the challenges. And Mark probably agree with me.
I'm going to echo on that. Somebody out there is watching, because if I've been thinking it this whole podcast, somebody out there is watching. Okay, what's the trick? What's the trick? I mean, we pray, try to pray every day, try to read the Bible.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that perfectly. So what's the trick? How do we stay focused on believing in the identity that we really are?
Well, like Chris said it earlier, it's got to be.
I think we are.
I think Chris said it earlier. I mean, it has to be intentional. It can't be passive. If it's passive, I'm great at that. Like, oh yeah, I know, but I don't really.
So, how do you beat a lie? You beat a lie with truth, right?
Everybody pay attention.
And so, I think it starts with, and this is something I really believe in a lot, is actually having like an identity statement. That because we have plenty of false identity statements. I'm not a reader.
Yeah.
Things. I'm a piece of crap. This is the way it's always going to be. So I'm a real big believer in speaking truth. Speaking truth. The Bible says the power of life and death is in the tongue. So if we're speaking death over ourselves all the time, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah.
So I think, it has to be intentional. I'll just tell you from my own story, because everything I'm telling you it comes out of my own story, out of my own experience. And when I started on this path, on this journey, just really seeking God and asking God the question, what do you think about me? What are your thoughts about me? Because I believe that. So the Bible says that before the foundation of the earth, He knew us.
Right.
So what that tells me is that before there was an earth, God knew there was going to be a Mark. He knew there was going to be a Tyler. He knew there was going to be a Chris. And so I asked God, when you're dreaming of me, what were you dreaming about? And so going through this process, God, what do you think about my life? This word came up. And it's a word I used with my own kids a lot. I would tell them they were my favorite. And it mattered, like if one was 13 years old, you're my favorite 13-year-old, you're my favorite 9-year-old, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that word just kept coming up. And so I took a Post-it note. And at that time I had, I sit at a desk in the office most of the time. And I took a Post-it note and I put favor on it. And I stuck it on my phone. And it was probably there a couple of years to where I looked at it and I looked at it and I looked at it. But it takes that kind of intentionality where we're constantly doing that. And also, I think it's really important. You talked about a while ago being around, these old farmers that complain all the time. I'm not going to be around that.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to be around those type people. I'm just not, because because of what it does to me. So it does take a lot of intentionality with you face a lie with the truth. And so how do you just keep putting that truth back in your mind? Keep putting that truth back in your mind. And I think sometimes, and don't hear what I'm not saying when I say this. We read the Bible and don't get a lot out of it sometimes.
Yeah.
We read the Bible because we're just checking a box. And sometimes we need to meditate on what it says. Instead of, I don't read a chapter a day or whatever, whatever the process is, find verses that really mean something to you and meditate on them.
Yeah.
And just let them soak in, let them soak in, let them soak in. And if there is a trick, I think that's the trick. But it's all a work of God. But here's another thing that how can we have the thoughts of God if we never spend time with God? And a lot of times too, we'll say, we'll ask people, tell me about your quiet time. And quiet time, again, sometimes for people it just comes a box check. I'm just checking the box.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to find some way to slow our minds down. We can think at about 1,000, 1,200 words a second or minute. That's really, really fast.
Mm-hmm.
We have to find some way of slowing our brains down to allow God to speak to us. That's like I'm a real big believer in journaling, and there's a lot of different ways to journal. You can write it, you can type it, you can speak it. There's just with technology, there's all these different ways of doing that. All those things do is they slow our brains down to where we can hear from God.
So I need to get my brain at the speed I can type.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It'd probably do you a lot of good.
It would.
Yeah. Because you think about how fast your brain runs, and how can with all that noise, how can God speak to us through all that noise? We got to have time where we're still. The Bible is very, very clear on be still. Why does it say that? Why does it say be still and know I'm God? Why does it say that? Why didn't it just say just know I'm God? It says be still and know I'm God.
And I think that in today's world, that has to be intentional too, because none of us have time.
No. Well, we do. I love the quote that says that one thing that social media has proved to us that we all have more time we thought we did.
No. Yeah.
Now, do y'all know the name Arthur Brooks?
I do.
So Arthur Brooks he's a Harvard professor. He's a Christian, and his field of study is happiness, is being happy. And I saw a video of him the other day, and he said that one of the reasons people
You're not talking about Mel Brooks.
I think they're related. They are. And Mel Brooks makes me very happy. It makes me very happy. But he talks about how people today, anxiety's through the roof, unhappiness is through the roof. We have an epidemic of meaninglessness. People feeling like life is meaningless. And he said the reason we're that way is we've lost the ability for deep thought. And the reason we've lost the ability for deep thought is we're never bored. Because you think about it, you can pull up to a red light and you look around and people scrolling on their phone. Every minute we're trying to fill it with something so that we don't have to have deep thoughts.
I'm having deep thoughts right now about deep thoughts.
About Jack Handy.
Handy.
I mean, I agree with that because I love the times when I can just like be and when I am having to think deeply about something, I'm usually having to solve a problem.
Yeah.
So, well, you were saying that. I can't remember the guy's name on SNL where he's like,
Stuart Smalley.
Yeah, he's looking. Doggone it, people like you.
That's right. I'm good enough. I'm smart.
I'm good enough. I'm smart enough.
Yeah.
Doggone it, people like me. So, yeah. But yeah, those are all great things to think on, and you're right. I mean, we have time. We don't think we have time. Like, all right, perfect example. Like today, I felt like you ever have like a lot to do, and then like you feel like after the day got by, like you had so much to do that you didn't get anything done. That makes sense. That was my day. Like that's kind of what I felt like. I felt like it was squandered. Like, because like what I'll do, I mean, when I get just overwhelmed with stuff. I go, oh my gosh, like I'm doing this, and I'm really not doing anything. Like I spent more time today having anxiety over what I needed to do than I did doing it.
That's what anxiety does, So anxiety takes us away from what's true. Yeah. So anxiety is a pretty big time waster.
Yeah. Pretty good at wasting time, then. Well, Mark, you got anything else? Any more questions for the Wizard of Oz?
No. I do like the part about being intentional about it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you pretty much have to.
And the reminder thing. So, you said I set sticky notes for myself at work. Put them on my computer.
Yep.
I've got a whole line of them. And if I do that for the important things at work, why not do it for the important things in life?
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
That's a good trick.
Yeah, there's plenty of messages, and most people live very accidental lives. And what I mean by accidental, they're just rolling through life. There's no plan, there's no purpose, there's no intentionality.
Mhm.
And if we're going to be, let me back up just a little bit. If we see this life as a gift from God and we're stewards of this gift with the understanding that, hey, one day we're going to have to get an account, because everybody assumes that just because you're a Christian, you're going to hear those words, well done. You may not. You may not. You may get there by the skin of your teeth. But we have to be intentional with this life that God gave us, because we're stewards, we're managers of this life, and if we approach it that way, we've got to think about, who are you becoming? Who are you growing? Who are you trying to grow into? And what's your plan to grow as a person? What's your plan to grow your character? What's your plan to grow as a Christian? Because again, going back to what I said a while ago, a lot of times we think we're floating, but we're really drifting.
Mm.
And so I ask people a lot of times, like if you had to grade, like if you were going to grade your relationship with God, what would you base it on?
I think most people would base it on what they've done.
Yeah, what they're doing. Well, I'm going to church, I'm reading my Bible, blah, 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 blah. What I would encourage you to do is, instead of grading your walk with God on what you're doing for Him, grade your walk with God on what He's doing for you. And so, like, I grade my walk with God on, do I have peace and confidence? Because those two things are not natural for me.
Mm-hmm.
Peace and confidence are not natural for me. So that's something I needed Him to do for me. But I have to be intentional on going and getting it.
Yeah.
Jesus says, He said, I came that you may have life and have it full or abundant or whatever. But I don't think He runs over us with it.
Yeah.
I don't think He forces it on us.
Yeah. That's good. Got a lot of work to do, boys.
Yep. Well, got anything else?
Oh, man, I appreciate you coming on tonight.
Yeah.
No.
Taking time out of your busy schedule.
Who do I see about the check? I mean, there was a check in.
Oh, yeah. Mark's got it.
Okay.
Mark's got it. Yeah,
You just hold on to it for a couple of weeks. Okay.
Man, let me text you that it's okay to. Yeah. Well, we enjoyed having y'all with us tonight, and or today, or whatever time you're listening to this. But if you like the content, we ask you to like, follow,
Share.
Yep.
Comment.
Yeah.
Send us some.
Like we say all the time, you're like, they may not like my comment. If we don't like it, we'll just ignore it, or we'll respond. You never know.
One of the two.
Mark, you're pretty good. Mark's really good at responding.
I don't like to respond.
You did. You were.
Well,
you were good at it.
You've got to do something. I mean, you're on a tractor. You're just driving. I mean,
it does a lot of the work.
It does most of the work. He's got a GPS on the thing.
Oh my God! Here we go.
Sitting there worried about
comment.
Identity.
Yeah, I'm worried about my identity.
You're not even a tractor.
I'm nothing. I am. Here we go. I am. I'm like, what was that name? Stuart.
Smalley.
Yeah. I'm good enough. I'm smart enough, and doggone it, some people like me.
Some people like me. And we like you. Thank you for joining us.
Yep.
Until next time.